500 years ago, he washed ashore the sole survivor of a shipwreck. And upon the skull of the man who killed his dad, he said, "I'm mad, I must eradicate piracy, injustice and cruelty."
G'day everyone, this is X-Band, the Phantom Podcast, episode number 230. We're the team from Chronicle Chamber. We're at the website chroniclechamber.com, and of course, if you're listening to this, you know that you can access our podcasts wherever you're listening to it, and I encourage you to subscribe that way. If possible, give us a rating on whatever app you're on, so that we can get found by more Phantom fans. So, as I said before, this is episode 230, September 22, Comics and News Podcast. We're excited to bring to you the news of September, and very excited that at the end of this episode, we're going to do our Patreon spring draw, which is the prize this year, this season for one of our lucky patrons is this Jan Hofstrom bag. But we'll get to that at the end of the podcast. My name's Dave Fraser, and tonight I am joined not by Stephen, unfortunately, because he's doing holidays properly and going to see the theme parks on the Gold Coast. Instead, we've got our regular Germ. How are you, Jermaine?
Your regular Germ. Is that the winter flu version or what? I'm doing good, thanks, mate. Just the common flu, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And the less common fluid, the less common germ, if you like. A special guest joining us today is Duncan Munro. How are you, Duncan? And welcome to a Comics and News Pod.
Dan, thank you very much. Jermaine, it's nice to feel about as welcome as COVID. Show off for 5 seconds and stay for 2 years.
Yeah. Now, Duncan, we did say that you had to be in the car. The two rules were you had to be in the car and you had to stay awake for some of it and then fall asleep because you're filling in Stephen's shoes. You're not in the car, mate.
Oh, this is the back seat.
It's a nice backseat.
I promise to get 50% of that work done while I'm on your podcast.
Oh, very good. Well, we don't want to be here for 5 seconds and staying 2 years, even though the Comics and News Pods can drag out. So we're going to hook straight into it, and we're going to start talking about the comics that have come out since our last pod. And we do have to start with Frew 1925. Now, I know we have already had a podcast on this, and go back and listen to pod 228 if you haven't already, the chat with Paul Mason. But we're going to touch briefly, at least because Duncan hasn't had the chance to talk about Frew 1925, but it's obviously the Masked Marvel special with the original from Lee Falk and Wilson McCoy, and then, of course, the sequel from Paul Mason, which we spoke so much about. Until the final bell. So Duncan, Germ and I have already had a chance to wax lyrical about this issue. What are your thoughts?
I thank you for giving me an opportunity. I did listen to your podcast and thought it was a great review and a great interview with Paul. I thought this was a fantastic issue, and I'd been looking to it coming out for quite some time. You covered most of it in the previous interview, so and quite in depth, including asking Paul some of his motivations and background behind some of the decisions he made in the storytelling. So for viewers and listeners that haven't heard that podcast, go back and listen to it. But I think it's a great example of what Paul described as filling the gaps. So modern day creators going back and looking at the classic stories and finding a way to, while staying true to the character and staying true to that story, is finding a new turn or a new take on it to introduce newer readers to that classic story. So they'll go in reverse and go back and read the original story. And Frew's conveniently put it all in one issue for everyone.
In colour as well.
And in colour, it's a fantastic way to see that, so the old and bolds, the classics, can enjoy that classic story in a different way and see a new creator's turn on it. I also like that this is the issue that they chose to use for the sketch, the new style sketch cover, because I think it's a good opportunity for a lot of people buy those for gifts for people, and it's an opportunity for them when they're going home on the train or the bus after they've been to the convention to flick through the book and maybe pick up a new reader at the same time. But it was a really good story, and I really liked a couple of moments in there where he's talking about the fighter's mind or the warrior's mind inside the fandom, where he's got that internal monologue, and it's not about the pugilism of the fight, it's about the motivation and the discipline inside the fighter. And I thought that was great because that was really a theme that wasn't explored in the early story but was paid tribute to, because in that editorial note at the back, Paul talks about Jim Shepard calling out that that Lee Falk saw more in the sport of boxing than just it being about fighters, and some of his counterparts who are playwrights and intellectuals probably didn't make that distinction, and he was trying to. It was a really great story.
Yeah. I thought the colouring was good. This is, from memory, this is the first time we've seen a colour issue on the new paper stock. I'm pretty sure it is. I think it's worth the investment of the better paper. And
Absolutely.
I know Paul said that he was a little bit disappointed in some of the colours, but Paul's a bit of a perfectionist, and if there was, no offense, but if there was a line out of synced or something, he would be disappointed where no one else would even notice. So,
well, obviously, he's completely zoomed in on every panel as he's drawing it and inking it. So he will know intimately how the colours are supposed to look in the best possible quality. And it might have been nice to see even a glossy white for this one. But I do agree that, we have talked about the colours in the Frew pages not looking their best before, but I think they've been improving those over time. This would be, and it's to do with the paper stock, certainly. This would be one of the better ones, and the quality of Ivan and Paul's work. But look, I have gone back and read this another couple of times, and it just it stays good with every reading. So any other comments before we move on from that one, guys? Because we have covered it in pretty good detail previously.
I just want to say that I think a typical Phantom fan fashion, Dan, never happy. We've been calling out for good paper quality. We get it, and it's still not good enough, and now you want glossy paper. Absolutely love it.
Oh, well, be that as it may. No, I wouldn't be looking for glossy colour. It probably would be too thick and heavy to post then. But no, I really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
So you made mention of the sketch cover. So it's good to see another version of sketch cover. I think this is probably the best version of the sketch cover we have seen. Frew have released 2 others. I would still like it a little bit less, with just the Phantom on the top and then maybe the little number bit at the top corner. But apart from that, I think it's a real good step in the right direction, getting rid of that circle. And then the other thing we need to make mention, of course, is that Frew has got the poster as well, which if you're on YouTube, we're flicking through the stories, and then this is the poster here.
And that poster looks great in real life.
Yeah, I haven't found a home for mine yet, but here's mine. That's very big.
It's a great idea for a tie into that issue.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. Like, for people are going to buy it. It was what, $25?
Yeah. $20.
20? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, $20. Yeah, that's right, because that's what we tell our wives that everything costs us.
You probably can allow $25 with the inflation and rise of cost of living these days.
Very good, Dan. But no, so have you all brought a poster?
Yeah.
I haven't got mine yet, but it's I've got a few things I need to pick up from Frew all at the same time, and I'm keen to you buy one poster, it's the same postage as if you buy 8, and I'm a bit of a tight ass cheapskate. Sorry, Jim, you can edit that.
So what? So are you waiting to buy other stuff? But surely you will buy 2, one for you, one to keep, and then one for Gus.
Well, you're up to 3 already, and there is. I was going to get a couple of extra Generations posters and that sort of thing. So anyway, point being, I need to save a little bit longer to fill the poster tube rather than just get them posted out one at a time.
Yeah.
And a great thing to get Paul to sign at appearances.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The challenge being then the carrying it around through Supernova or Comic Con.
Carefully.
I'm sure he would have the poster, so you just buy another poster, and then you got to carry it back rather than carry it to and then back. Yeah,
very good. All right, so we will move on then to Frew 1926, and that is the one with the Alex Tripp cover, Kit and the Pirates, with the Clay Srimethi and Caesar Spadari story. Caesar Spadari's last story before he unfortunately passed away. This issue having first been published by Fantomen in 2019. It's got the backup story, Wolves in London, Part 3 by Andrew Constant and Jason Paulos. The cover is from the folio prints, I think, or just similar. Did Alex Tripp continue? We can talk about the folio prints at the end. Let's talk about the stories to begin with. So, Kit and the Pirates, as I said, written by Clay Srimethi, drawn by Caesar Spadari. What do we think about this one? Jim, how about you go first this time?
Look, Caesar Spadari is one of my all-time favourite artists. Always loved his art. Grew up, well, not grow up on it, but grew up as a fan on his work. You know, like mid-90s, late 90s was my earlier, you know, informative years as a Phantom fan. You know, he was quite prolific. Liked all his stories. He's good at pirates. He's done all the Kate Somerset series. He did, what was that one? Mary Poe was another art, the Pirate Queen. 1, 1, 2, 3 or 4 or 6 or something along those lines. That was a great story that I enjoyed as a kid as well. It helped that I had a pretty blonde in it. So, you know, so all these stories he's done, I've enjoyed. Pirate stories, I've enjoyed his work, enjoyed his artwork. That's one of the reasons why I've enjoyed the stories by Percy Okra as well, is because there's a lot of heavy influence by him with Caesar. So yeah, look, I enjoyed this story. It's nice. I like seeing a bit of stories about a Phantom before he becomes the Phantom, because you kind of get. I feel like sometimes when they become the Phantom, they get a little bit more wooden when they're a kid or when they're not quite the Phantom. There can be a little bit more of a room to play with the personality of the Phantom. And I feel that we get a lot more of an understanding of this Phantom before he becomes a Phantom through stories like this. But yeah, no, overall I enjoyed it. It was nice.
I guess that there's certainly, you can put a lot more expression on faces when you can show the eyes. I mean, that's probably a handy thing for the artists. But you're right. I think though that trend of authors in the last 5 to 10 years, and Clay Srimethi would be certainly chief amongst them, exploring the Phantom's personality and self-doubt, which we never used to see as much by Lee Falk, or certainly I don't recall it that way. Duncan, what about you? What did you think of this story?
I thought this was there's been a bit of a spate of pirate stories with the Phantom with Frew this year, and I think there's some more coming, which I don't have an issue with. Like you were saying, there was another recent cover by Alex with heavy pirate theme on the cover. The combination of writer and artist in this story, I really enjoyed it. So the pacing of this story, like the thing that normally puts me off with a lot of the European Egmont stories is how many panels they try and squeeze on a page, and they get these fantastic artists, and then they're cramming these cramming their art into small panels to fit heaps on a page, and there's lots of text. The pacing in this is amazing. It's like you're watching a fast-paced movie, and as it gets to the end, I was turning the pages to see what was going to happen as the two different storylines were tying together. It was a great climax to the story.
Yeah, no, you raised a good point there. They've done a lot of stories together, Clay and Caesar. So, you know, it's sad that we've lost them, but it's also exciting in the sense that we've been left with such a legacy with their work.
Yeah, absolutely have to agree with what you said there about the panel sizes and that, Duncan, and I think that's probably what, again, puts me off Egmont created stories from time to time is just how crowded the pages look, and this is a very open and fresh design, so it looks great. I really enjoyed the story as well, and the concept of kid having to join the pirates and go undercover, so to speak, but then not being able to help himself and getting busted anyway. And then the way that he works to hold the pirates off and all that sort of stuff, it's similar to what you were saying at the start there, Jim. You're starting to see him develop into the fandom. He's not there yet. I did get a giggle out of the top left panel on page 22. I'm not sure if you can bring that one up, Jim. Kit has done a fantastic job of holding off the pirates, and they've all gone to shore and all the rest of it. He signalled to his dad. Dad's on the way. Happy days. Oh no, I forgot they had rafts. I forgot that the pirates rafted over to the shore and they could raft back. So hasn't got all of his wits about him just yet, but he's on the way.
But it's a believable accident, like sometimes where probably the biggest one that we hate on this podcast is when they get whacked in the head. That it's an easy way of getting the Phantom captured, where it's like you can understand that he forgot the rafts. Being young, he's probably 16 to 18. He's still going to make some foolish decisions and all that. So it is believable.
All he had to put instead of that in that speech bubble was, "Oh, they're back already," something like that. And he sounds a lot more in charge of things. It's the anyway.
Yeah, valid point.
What
do you guys think about the Wolves in London story?
Oh, I'm on the record as not enjoying the Gaslighty series as much. It's fun. It was a fun read. We say that a lot on the pod when I think we just
it's code for not again.
It's code for enjoyable, but it's not probably something I'm going to seek out to read twice. So
see, I didn't think it's enjoyable. I enjoyed the last Phantom Gaslight one, which was the floating ship with the pirate queen and stuff like that. Like that was, and I think I've been on record in saying that for me, that's been the most Phantom by Gaslight story we have actually seen. It's got the over the top modern elements of old technology, i.e., a floating sky ship, but it's actually still a Phantom story. Like someone gets kidnapped, the Phantom rescues it. This is, I don't know, werewolves and the Frankenstein and all those supernatural elements. It's not exactly my Phantom or what I picture of a Phantom story.
I think monsters are a strength with Andrew in his writing, though. I think that's it seems to be a natural place for him to go, and a lot of the stories, like you mentioned, Frankenstein and things like that, and the Raven story in one of the Giants. Recently.
So that was enjoyable, but I guess you weren't trying to fit the Phantom into a monster story. That might be where I kind of struggle with, is that like the story is good, but I struggle with it being, and maybe I'm now old and one of those old people that just don't like change and stuff like that. But I don't see my Phantom.
People have been complaining.
My Phantom.
People have been complaining about Phantom and monster stories, or I suppose science fiction, more to the point, when Lee Falk did it in the 60s with the was it Blue Horn Pirates? Blue Horn people. I forget the name of it. The Dark Star or something like that.
So you've got
Horn Star.
The Horn Star
demons,
and then you've also got the Blue Giant. And then you've got the 1990s story of how the Phantom saved the Earth as well, which kind of felt like something out of Captain.
Yeah,
was it Captain Planet?
Like
a spin-off with that story.
And look, the little people and his and hers, like there's people, and there's lots of people who don't like those sorts of things, and there'll be the same people who don't like the werewolves. I'll wager that any of those stories we've just rattled off of Lee Fawkes are not necessarily your favourite ones either.
No.
But what you would have to say is for a werewolf story, if you're going to have the Phantom in a werewolf story, it's a really good one. And as you said with the pairing earlier, you said about Ramethi and Spaderi. I think the pairing of Andrew Constant's writing and Jason Paolis's art is fantastic too. So,
very well suited.
Yeah.
So I reckon I would have enjoyed the story more if the Phantom was substituted for, say, the Raven or one of the other Frew created or Frew owned characters.
None of them really play in the supernatural either, though.
Yeah, but I don't have an invested interest in those.
But it is important to remember that these stories are serving a purpose, and that's to fill a space in a comic that would otherwise be ads for messenger bags and cards that you've already got. So, and people writing into Dudley saying they do or don't like the collector's edition. So
instead, they just start podcasts and do it that way.
And they're punchy stories, so they're chapters, and I think they're digestible enough to be that punchy chapter of a story. The most recent issue had the third part of that story, and I went back and read the other two to read that again just to refresh myself, because it's sort of a 6 weeks.
It was a break, yeah.
But it is a really good story punched together, and there are some nice moments. I'll wait till the next issue for part 3, which was one of my favourites. But
we are talking about part 3 at the moment.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're right. So that's
thanks, Stephen.
Sorry, I said that. Is when
sorry,
is where the lawman comes across his wife, and they find her in the shadows, and the Phantom has the idea to break the amulet and set her up in an ambush, and he says to her, "Hi," and he goes, "You look a bit tense." That's to be expected. I think it's so great. Anyone that's been in a long-term relationship knows it's like someone first thing in the morning, or when they're feeling a little bit delicate. I think it captured very well there by Andrew. I love that moment.
A long term, even a short term. So I've just brought it up for those on YouTube. You should be able to see it again. So this is on what is it, page 29? It looks like.
Yeah.
And look, I take your point, and you do raise a good point, is that it is, it fulfills the purpose. I like having 2 stories in one comic. And there will, and to be on the flip side and to counter argue my own argument, there will be fans that do like this. And it's a great way of, if you think about it, all of the stories, all of the issues the 3 comics that we are going to review today have multiple target audiences. You have your classic with your Paul Mason, with your classic, your Wilson McCoy stories, and you've got your Paul Mason one, which is more of your drama type of thing. And then you have the Island and the Kit and the Pirates, which is a little bit more actiony and stuff. And then you've got your sci-fi mystery monster theme, and then you've got your Golden Queen, which is a real love story type of thing. So there's a real 4 or 5 different types of genres that these 3 comics do, and each comic has a different style in it, which really can target multiple audiences. So I do take that is a very good point.
And to your point, Jim, the people, like one of the motivations behind I think Frew and mostly Glenn and Dudley getting different creators to work on the stories is to bring a new audience across with those creators. And a lot of Andrew's work, he's worked for a lot of different publishers, but his fans will be expecting a certain kind of writing from him. Yeah, I think the line to that.
Can I ask you then? Is it a bit of a mess that we get to the end of the Andrew Constant story, we turn the page and there's an ad for the Ghost and the Monster, doesn't mention Andrew Constant's name at all, which seriously, Dudley, have a look at your ad writing.
but I think it is. I think it's a good in for his readers to see a short story that he might have on the table at a con, or they get because Andrew Constant wrote it. And then they're going to read a Kit and the Pirate story, which is this fantastic example of a classic Phantom story. Like that's what a lot of Phantom stories are like. So if you like it, go pick some more up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
The only thing that I enjoy having the two stories in a single issue too, but and I've said this before, I'd really love a splash page between them, just to like even in the start of the story with some nice big panels like we see in the first issue. The second story often just feels like it bleeds in. That's why I was actually checking to see if there was, and they've used the last page here for an ad that could have been a splash page for the Wolves of London story. Frew's entitled to spend their pages on their ads if they like. But as you said, Duncan, a lot of us have, if you're picking up this book, you've already got, a lot of us already got all of that stuff anyway. I'd just like to see a splash page, but understand space constraints, which are even worse, if I can use that as a segue, when we look at issue 1927, because every page of issue 1927 has been used on story right up to the very end. And so much so that there's not even room for message for the publisher. So talk about filling your 36 pages with story. Issue 1927 has certainly done that.
I reckon Dudley likes these type of issues. It's one less job for him.
He ironically didn't have room to include the letter from someone saying there wasn't enough content in the Phantom comics anymore.
I enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed this story. Look, again, Claes Vermeulen, Carrie Lepinen, they've created probably 100 stories together. Maybe more realistic, 50 to 70, but still a lot of stories they've created together. They, Carrie, in speaking to Carrie, he's got a real love for Claes Vermeulen and for his style, and I think they work well together. I like this story. It's not the first time we've seen the Phantom become blind. There was another story actually by Le Pen. What was it? Was it the Golden Rune Part 2 or maybe Part 1, I believe, where he was also blinded and he had to go through the adventure being blind. I do like how, as you can see again, if you're on YouTube here, you'll be able to see like the Phantom's got his mask blacked in. I thought that's a clever way of we talked before about being hard to show emotion on the Phantom's face with a cowl and the eyes, but I think that's a good way of showing that he's blind. It's a good, a way of doing that.
He does have them blacked in on pages 4 and 5 though before he goes blind. So, but you're right. Maybe leave those ones out. But
don't ruin the point, Dan.
Sorry, but you're right. That page is really effective because
Look, I like it. It's very fan to me. You've got ships again, shipwrecked. You've got a tiger doing it. You've got the redemption story of the guy who's got the skull mark and then he gets the good mark. I think there needs to be more of those types. I think I only remember one other story where that's happened. I think that's a bit of a miss by a lot of creators. That you could. We know that people can get worse being in jail, but it's also nice to see that maybe sometimes people can turn their life around as well and help out the Phantom and get a good mark ring. And I enjoyed the story. What about you guys?
The only thing I'll say about your point is it'll lead to a black market in good marks. No, I was redeemed. Instead of growing a beard, look, I've got this little tattoo down here. Yeah. And I've been redeemed.
And I totally didn't get that done at the tattoo shop.
Yeah.
But that, and on that, I think it was allowed for that great moment where the wife finds the Phantom and leads him back to help, and then the husband's nervous and you don't know why, and then he turns around and you see the skull mark, and the Phantom can't see it, and so it is that he doesn't know who he is. But a couple of panels later, he figures it out because he's listening or whatever. I think if this was a TV show, an episode of a Phantom TV show, if anyone's listening, that drama could have been held a lot more, where the audience knows why the character's acting that way, but the Phantom doesn't, and there should be a disconnect there where the Phantom is just treating him like a normal person, and that softens the bad guy up to go, well, he doesn't actually know that I'm that guy.
Yeah, I reckon. On that point, where you've got, like you can't see the Phantom's eyes, and there's always the shadows, or there's always the thing in front of it and stuff like that. If you're doing a TV show, you would almost keep the audience still trying to guess why this guy doesn't like the Phantom and build that with it. But it
At
would
least the
make it
second
good.
or third ad break before the audience gets to see the skull mark, and then a couple more before he realizes.
Yeah. But so hopefully someone's out there is listening to us. But yeah, I like the redemption story. But it still leaves a little bit off the story, I guess, for it either to be picked up again or just left out there for people to kind of think about and stuff, which I think is good. I think sometimes you don't always want certain elements to be solved in a story.
Sorry, are you talking about having a sequel to this story, Jerm? Do you mean?
Well, so like there's does he go back to the jungle? Does he go to Morristown? What happened to the money that was hidden? Did he actually hide the money, or are the people still looking for him? Are they going to find him when he goes back to the jungle? And is that going to there's all these type of questions. Like, I'm reading it and I'm going, what about the money? Where's the money? Did he keep the money, or did he not keep the money? Or
that's how he bought the island.
Yeah. But
it does conclude very quickly. This story, it's sort of just rattling along, and then suddenly the last two panels, boom, you're done. So yeah, I can understand why you were left feeling like, hang on, I need to turn one more page here.
But I think it's good. It makes you question it, and then you're sitting there. You're sitting there. Obviously, I only sat there for a minute because I had to go back to work. But you're sitting there going, well, what about this? What about that? And it's making you think about the story, and and I'm sure there will be other people out there that will go, oh, well, we could create a story about this, or whether they actually put it down on paper or whether they just let their mind wander. And I think it's good that the creative team have allowed room for fans to enjoy what ifs about what could happen.
It's part of the talent of good story writing, isn't it? Giving the audience people to wonder, things to wonder about. And you don't need to resolve everything, every little thing, because that otherwise, where would you get, fan fiction would never exist. So, yeah.
I think I like this bat. Going into the bat caves and freaking him out, and then it's kind of like, well, then he equals. Okay, you're blind, I'm blind. Now it's my jungle skills, which are, have taken away your strength. And I'm now using my strength, which is the jungle skills, against you. And I like that as well.
And the wit of spreading the shells. So he actually had an advantage all of a sudden because he knew what that was about. And he knew if it was crunching and it wasn't him, that it must be one of the bad guys, obviously.
Yeah. And then I liked the other bit where, this isn't probably the best example. This one here. So this is on page 18. Page 18, where the Phantom's testing whether he can see, and it's fuzzy and just shadows and all that, which kind of gives you a glimpse into what the Phantom's looking like. And there's another one further down the track as well, which which is good as well.
And I think I was going to say, Jim, to your point about the coloured in eyes, I actually do think that that's been done completely on purpose, because from the moment the flare gun goes until the moment that the scene is clear that the Phantom can see again, his mask is blacked in that entire time. I actually think that those two panels I pointed out on page 4 and 5 might have been an over-eager editor who was keen on that story element getting all the way through, but just perhaps colouring in 2 more panels than they should have done, because with the exception of those two, it's completely accurate in the story as to whether he can see or not, as to whether the eyes are blacked in.
Yeah, on page 23 we're talking about, for those who don't have the comic in front of them or aren't on YouTube. Duncan, anything you want to add?
No, that was it does wrap up quite quickly. But speaking of filling gaps in stories, I think that's where you're going to with Shane's story.
Oh, mate, look at that, eh? He's a podcast of doing what do you call it? Lead-ins already. Better watch out, Stephen. But yeah, now he's still awake as well. Now I remember I wasn't expecting this story to be published so quickly because this is a 2022. He wrote and drew this at the start of the year, and I remember talking to Shane, and he said that he had something in the works regarding this. So it's nice to see this produced quite quickly. So do you guys remember the Lee Falk story, The Golden People?
Yes, and I reread it again after when I saw this story coming out.
Okay, so now I must admit I didn't really think much of the original story because it was a typical Lee Falk type of Sire Barry story, but I think I enjoy it more. Well, not enjoy it more, but it's like I'm a lot more excited by the story. The fact that there was that obvious gap. You know, Lee Falk maybe mentions this story that we're reading now, you know, in maybe a week or two, and then he just moves on and just never visited the people again or that again. And then now Shane Foley's doing a 3-part story on that. Yeah, I liked it. The only problem that I have, and I have talked to Shane about this, is that I don't like the fact that he's making mention of the fourth son story in this. Because I did not like that story. That was a personal preference. It just ruined the whole. It put too many holes. It introduced too many holes into the 9th Phantom and the 10th Phantom than what than actually it solved. So I don't like stories that introduce more holes than they actually try and solve. So that's one of the reasons. So for those who don't know, the fourth son is the 9th Phantom, who was supposed to be the short one, who married a Mongolian princess, which we see her introduced on page 26. Yeah. Dan, did you read the story?
Yeah, I haven't gone back and read The Golden People. I haven't had time to do that, and I certainly will before episode 2 comes out, because reading this one reminded me of elements of The Golden People, but it's not a story that I've got at my fingertips, so to speak. Probably not surprised to hear what you say about the fourth son story, but I don't have those concerns. I suppose I actually thought that it was a nice touch to recall the Mongolian princess as a bride, and for that, and this isn't a coloured story, but the golden person who appears remarks that maybe I can trust this guy because he's got skin similar colour to mine, and hearkening to the Phantom, not necessarily being this white European dude, Anglo-Saxon, who I think most people think of when they think of Phantom. This guy's his mum is Mongolian. He's going to have some different features from perhaps, and you just don't like the fourth son. You don't like the runt 9th Phantom. Is that right?
No, for me,
it is a Lee Falk story, and Lee Falk created the Phantom lineage, and he's entitled to do what he wants with his Phantoms.
Oh, okay. So does that include having the same woman marry 3 different Phantoms?
No, that's obviously something that is an oversight, but that's very different. A character, a minor character that he likes to go back to for 3 random stories. He's created his entire take on the 9th Phantom. So I think that probably should just get kept in. I don't know why it's a problem, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I have a few problems with that. This is not the time and place for it, but we are doing a podcast where we will talk about that soon, because it ties in with a project that we that we have been working on. That's in a soft launch at the moment. So we will discuss that because that story plays a pivotal role in some of the stuff that I've done. So so we'll leave that, and we'll leave that as a bit of a teaser.
Right. Well, fair enough too, because we're spending far too long on an element that's brought out by one editorial box in the middle of page 29. As far as the rest of the story goes, unless Duncan, you want to weigh in on that, or would you like us to take us in a different direction and actually talk about the story that we're reading?
No, I've got a gag that you might have to cut out, but it's about a man's on his deathbed, and he calls his wife to his deathbed and says, "Look, I'm not long for this world. I need to know the truth about something." She says, "Anything, my husband. I love you. I'll tell you whatever you need to know." And he said, "We have 4 amazing sons." And he said 3 of them are strong, smart, athletic, brilliant, hardworking men. The 4th one, short, dumpy, a bit slow, and very lazy. I won't be angry at you, but I have to know, is he mine? And she looks at him deep in the eyes and holds his hand and says, "Yes, darling, he is." And with that, the man with a smile on his face leans back and closes his eyes and passes over to the other side. As she gets up to leave the bed, she lets out a breath and goes, "Thank God he didn't ask about the other 3. might have to cut there for the kids that are listening. But no, I didn't have any more to add to that editorial box, as you say.
All right. So,
anything about the story?
Yeah, tell me about the story. What did you? I really like the artwork. I do enjoy Shane's artwork. He's got some. He works with panels in an unusual sort of way. He works with the shadows and the light in a really clever ways as well. When you're looking through windows, or if you're the colouring on that page you're on at the moment, Jim, or the artwork at the top of page 30, where he's standing at the top of the abyss and the vapors are coming out. That's just so well done. It almost looks like when old Frews used to have printing errors, but it's absolutely not that sort of shadow that's come through something in the print run. It's a really deliberate and clever use of the grayscale, I reckon.
When I scanned it and I was looking through it, I thought, "Oh no, I've made a mistake." And there was also on the last page, I think it was. Not yeah. No, no. Look, one of the things I love about Shane is I love his storytelling. I love the fact that he can tie in Phantom elements. He knows the Phantom. He has a real love for Wilson McCoy, and I think, and so he likes to tie in those elements. Everyone loves Cy Barry. Most people love Ray Moore, so they're good at tying in those things. Wilson McCoy is kind of like that, he's like that weird uncle at Christmas that you can't only invite because he's family. And so sometimes I feel like, Wilson McCoy kind of gets left in the, the back corner with the kids because no one wants him at the dinner table with the adults. But I love the fact that, Shane Foley has a real love for him. And so he gives him a little bit more of attention and stuff like that as well. So.
And that panel, that page that you're on there, I don't know what page you're on, but
34, 35.
Where it's got those close-ups of his eyes. And
then
point of view with the guard over the top of him. That's a great cliffhanger. I suspect this is probably a full story that they've cut into the 3 acts to fit across 3 chapters, as we were talking about before with filler stories. But I'm definitely the suspense is there for me to know what happens next.
It's quite literally a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about Shane's amazing talent, being able to blend his writing with his artwork, and he's really laid each page out really well to really tell that story. The original the Golden People story wasn't actually a long story either. Like it was quite a short story itself. And he's reading in the Chronicles because the kids, Rex and Tom, want to know about the
golden flower,
the treasure room, and there's a golden flower in there. And so he goes back and finds the story, and then Devil shows up with a golden flower and they trace back to he goes and finds this place that Shane's showing in this story, and the who created the Jungle Patrol? 17th Phantom? Seventh Phantom. So the seventh Phantom has written about this place, but only referenced it, and he's got this golden flower and keeps saying, I promised her I wouldn't say anything. And then when he shows up, he finds that the woman's about to be burnt at the stake. So he jumps in and rescues her, and then finds that there's a culture in the community there that the queen can only be the queen for 3 years, and then she's burnt, and they select a new queen.
Oh, that's right.
It's a lot like our democratic process. So he saves her, and then by law, they've said that it's been handed down since the seventh Phantom was there, that if he ever turned up again, that the queen is supposed to go and marry him, because the seventh Phantom had said, I won't stay here and marry you because I'm the Phantom, but if you come with me, you can be my queen. She said she wouldn't do it, so she died of a broken heart. And so that's the story that doesn't get told. So Shane's filling in that gap.
And if you do want to go back and read that, I've just checked the most recent printing by Frew in Australia was issue 1335, 1335, which was published in 2002, and in Sweden, published more recently than that in their Christmas album from 2021. That was a reprint of the 1971 Christmas album, but that's the most recent place you can pick those up in I guess, two of the more popular reading countries.
Quick question, and I know we've got to move on because we're probably going to be spending a lot of time with the Daily and Sunday story. Should have they reprinted the original story before they went with the prequel, or are they going to do the prequel first and then do the Golden People?
It's interesting because, as Duncan said, it is so short. It's only 16 weeks. So what would that be in 8 pages? It might be 10 pages in a Frew comic. And so, putting that into, balancing that into the issue size would be the challenge. Yeah.
I just thought it could be a way of, for those who haven't read the story. And I guess at the moment, you're not, there's no real need for that. But maybe at the end of this 3-part, it might be nice to have that in there, so that way you can have them. I don't know. Yeah.
All right. So, unless there's anything, I'm going to ask to put it out to you guys as well. Duncan, you're an author. Is it the obvious that the servant girl that the Phantom's talking to in the garden is, of course, going to turn out to be the queen all along?
I wouldn't dare to suggest that Amidala, it might be a misdirect. You wait and see.
If it's a misdirect, it's the strongest one I've read in a long time.
I did ask Shane about that, and he goes, "Yeah, I didn't try and hide it very well." But look, I liked it. I really liked it. I'm looking forward to the others. I think it's given me a better appreciation of the original Lee Falk story, and I have faith that Shane will make this story good.
In the original story, the Phantom, sort of resolves the story and then says, before I leave, I've got to check this place out. And he spends a couple of pages looking around at it. And just like the Phantom was curious, Shane's taking us. I'm curious too to know what this place looks like. And Shane's taking us back there.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said there, Jim, about, and I'll pick up on a similarity, I guess, from what we were talking about with Paul Mason and the Masked Marvel earlier, is the sequel having the opportunity to shine new light on the original story. Duncan was talking about, the respect that Lee Falk had for pugilism, and then Paul Mason being able to explore it. If this story gives you a new respect for the Golden People story as well, perhaps some of those stories of Lee Falk's and that you are dismissive of at times might have a new light and a refreshed enjoyment for you.
Yeah, and look, I'm happy to be proven wrong. It doesn't happen often, but I am happy to be proven wrong.
All right. Now, before we leave that, we must talk about, and I'm sorry, Alex, we only gave your cover short shrift earlier. Paul, we talked about your cover in the pod we did with you. But Jeremy McPherson's cover for this issue, front and back, obviously, classic Jeremy style. He doesn't. He does usually sign them somewhere. But you could tell it was Jeremy McPherson right from the style. I do enjoy seeing his covers come around. They're a lot simpler than and less busy, I suppose, than some of certainly the stuff you'll see from Alex or from Grange Wallace, for instance. But I really like his style.
Yeah, just the minimalist in the sense, but every stroke has the right weight, the right depth to it. He's really good at drawing animals. This would be one of the first times he hasn't drawn a horse on one of his covers. He always draws horses on his covers. But yeah, no, really liked his artwork. He had original artwork that went for sale at the Lee Fort dinner, and that was very popular as well.
All right, speaking of covers, this is probably my favourite cover of September, and that would be the Giant Size number 22 by Glenn Lumsden. The real fun, I said fun, it's not a code word on this occasion, Glenn. I actually really mean that this is a fun, enjoyable cover. It's just got a childlike innocence to it, and the way that he keeps bringing these Frew heroes together. This time at a carnival where the Phantom is clearly dominating the shooting game and winning teddy after teddy for his adoring. Well, they're not his kids, but they're kids who adore him because he's getting lots of teddies. So, thoughts on the cover, Germ? I know this was a favourite of yours as well.
Yeah, look, I loved it. Glenn Lumsden used to do posters for Haddo's Hot Dogs, which was a local hot dog food van down in Tasmania. And so when I saw this, no jokes, I spent 5 minutes looking for the Haddo's Hot Dogs sign. And then I messaged him and said, "Where's Haddo's Hot Dogs?" And this was a perfect opportunity to fit it in there. You're at a carnival. You always eat your corn dogs and stuff like that. And I just don't think he even thought about it. But I would have liked to see it. And dare I say it, that picture there almost looks like Renee, who's a bit sad because he's lost out on money.
Well, I don't know that I'd go that far, but gee, that little inset of the carny upset and resigned, that just completely makes the rest of it. It does. Last little thing you spot and you just go, that's perfect.
It does. Look, I really enjoy Glenn's work for Giant Sizes. I really like it.
Duncan, have you got the original of this yet? Must have some space on the wall there behind you.
The Phantom at the Eka cover has not made its way to my wall. But I do love it. It's fantastic.
Very good. Retro goodness, as it says, and it really feels it. Look, we could always, as we say this with every Giant Size, there's lots of cool stories to read and hope that people enjoy. But we are a Phantom podcast, so we focus on the Phantom story that is in it. This time we've got the Golden Sands of Kilauea, which is a Lee Falk Barry story that is quite popular with a lot of people, and is one of those ones that I think are the kind of story that made Cy Barry such an icon, I reckon. But we do see it in fresh colours this time. Ivan Peterson has contributed his colours, and he's turning out to be quite a prolific colourist for Frew. It would have to be, I think it'd be impossible to argue that he's not the most prolific colourist that Frew's ever used. And it's printed in landscape, which is a bit different from previous Giant Sizes.
Now, landscape, so I'll just show this up again. If you're on YouTube, I'll try and explain it for the audio-only listeners. Not YouTube. Landscape makes sense because you've got the intro panel here, then you've got the top tier, and then you've got the second and third one.
It's the same shape that they were created.
Made for. If you were to bring that on this, you would have to higgly wiggly. Some panels would have to be stretched. And that's what's happened for 900 Frew issues is that they butchered the panels to make it fit a portrait style. Look, I think for a giant size it works well because when there's been other giant size stories, not one in this one, but there's been other giant size stories where they printed landscape. Now, from a maybe this is the old age of me showing I'm almost 40, so I'm now classified as an old man. I prefer my Sundays printed like this because it's how they were originally designed. Yeah, the top tier sometimes can be left off because it's some artists use it as like a recap. I think it reads like a Sunday. It might not read like a graphic novel or something like that, but I think it reads better. What are your guys' thoughts? Can you handle the landscape, the reading, the recaps and seeing the panels like that, or you just don't like it, or you prefer it?
I can handle it because look at that. Look at the top panel on that page. Like you can't, if you squeezed that into a portrait style, you'd be very disappointed. Like,
yeah,
that's a beautiful Cyberry panel, and in color. I love this story, and in color, I really love it. Like, I really enjoyed it again, reading it in color.
Absolutely. I probably prefer it if they keep consistent within a book. It's a very minor thing. I'm turning it from reading it landscape and suddenly I'm reading it portrait. It's a super minor thing. I'd probably prefer all of the stories in the single issue to be printed one way or the other. But 100% agree that the Sundays need to be printed in their entirety, whether it's Cy Barry or Jeff Weigel or whoever else it might be doing the Sundays. The top tier, even if it is a reminder of where we left off last week. As Duncan just showed, that's where you get some classic panels come out because it summarizes everything. So it's actually a better capture, a better single image capture of the entire story. So, which I do love about that. So, I thought I loved Ivan's colouring of the people rolling around on the beach and how much more yellow they became when they stood up again from the beach and that sort of thing. Really brought to life some classic images as well. The scene with Junkar getting saved by the tiger. Just some absolute iconic images from Cy Barry's work as the Phantom on the Phantom. So loved seeing them brought back to colour or into colour for the first time for so many of us.
Yep. Good points.
All right. Anything else on the Golden Sands?
Well, happy to move on.
Cool. All right. So moving on, we're going to go around the world with our reviews now. Jim, I've been a little bit out of loop as we come towards the end of the term. Have we got Ankit giving us some Indian reviews today?
No. So Ankit has experienced some technical difficulties, but he's also been quite busy with some special stuff with Regal. So, but in saying that, we should have I think we're about 2 issues behind on Shatki and 3 or 4 issues with Regal. So we should get those in the next week or two. So, apologies, we haven't forgotten all our Indian fans. We get asked about this probably a couple of times a week, asking when the next review is going to come up. They will be up soon. So,
well. And feel free to edit this out, Jerm, if you feel, but it may be worth putting it out there to any other Indian fans who'd love to hear a review or perhaps contribute a review. If Ankit's busy creating some pretty awesome stuff for you to read or to enjoy, it might be worth someone else saying, you know what, I'll help out.
Yeah, of course. So if there's anyone out there who wants to help out or, help out when Ankit can't, or if seeing is pretty busy and stuff like that, wants to take over, we can discuss that. And how can people get in touch with us, Dan?
Well, you can hit up any of the socials, Jerm. We are at Chronicle_tweet on Twitter. You search for Chronicle Chamber on Facebook, and obviously chroniclechamber@gmail.com for an email is probably the single best way to get in touch. Anyway, looking forward to hearing from some people in India, perhaps. Meanwhile, we will shoot over to Sweden because Mikael has been able to pick up the last couple of Fantomen stories for us, and we're going to hear his reviews of issues 16 and 17 from this year. But perhaps a little bit more exciting, and I haven't seen this yet, Germ. I think you've been talking to Mikael about this, but his review of the Jean-Yves Mitton book. Very excited for that one.
Oh no! So the Jean-Yves Mitton book was done by On. That's that big hardcover Mitton book. Did you get one of those, Duncan? Now, how cool is that book?
The box is really good. This book, I 100% agree with you. One of the best Phan publications I've ever seen. This book is breathtaking.
Yeah.
The quality of the cover, seeing this art on this good quality paper in this size, and the bonus content and stuff at the back. This is a fantastic book that I can't put on the shelf because I keep taking it down and looking at it.
Yeah. What have you done with the box?
Sitting right there. I can't throw it away.
No way. The box itself is a collectibles piece. Look, so On reviews the book. Mikael is going to review the Fantomen stories, but he's also not sure if he'll be in time for this podcast, but he's reading the trade paperback for the Heart of Darkness, which is all collected together. It's about this thick. They only printed 1,000 of those. That I've been told may rival the Mitton book in quality and stuff like that. That's some of the noise that I'm hearing out there, is that it might not be as good, but it will, be talked about in the same sentence of the Mitton book, the Heart of Darkness book, and then the Herms full-size Sunday book. A lot of people who have got all three said that they're the standout 3 Phantom publications ever. So, and then Mikael will also review the softcover album, which has come out as well. He's got a hand of that, but he's going to read the trade of the Heart of Darkness one first. So thanks, Mikael. Over to you, buddy.
Time for another Fantomen review with me, and this time it's a double feature. Long time since that happened, but kids being home at summer, I blame it all on them. So we have 2 nice issues. It's issue number 16 and issue number 17 of 2022. Start off with issue 16 with this. I think it's the first cover ever made by Janus Orden. I'm so bad at pronouncing names. He usually used this style that it almost looks like a painting, and I really enjoy that style. And in this issue we finally got the result of the best cover and a poster with that. You can read more about that on the revamped Chronicle Chamber webpage. I wrote an article about that when this issue first came out. About the stories, the main stories is called basically the Valley of the 1,000 Graves, and it's written by Jakob Habinch, and has art done by Alex Saviuk. It seems inspired by all of these old environmental stories, but a bit more modern. It's a lake with a power plant construction and a close-by tribe, and they don't get along that well. And then there is this black and white classics what's it called? Reprint story made by Errol, who just made new art from an old Falk story. And Drama in the Desert, it's about Diana and Byron getting caught by slave traders. Byron flees and informs the Phantom, while Diana outsmarts the slavers, and Phantom follows the tracks, and they run past each other all the time. Just like it happened a lot in the early Phantom stories. There's a bit about the other contenders in the best cover of 2021. Then we have issue 17 with a bright, nice cover made by Lyck. It has the Phantom and these outlaws from the main story, The Outlaws, written by Peter Anderson and art by Rafael Dantas. It is a Frew story that looks amazing with some colors. And a lot of things happens in this story. He meets up with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and it's quite funny story, and those outlaws are quite funny in themselves. I enjoyed this one, and after that we have another reprint in black and white. It is Lee Falk and Errol again. And this one is called The Buried Witness from 1972. And it's a remake of Diane and the Bank Robbers. This after reading the Robert Armand's book, I can see some of the points he is making. Diane is more or less lucky in her endeavors, while the Phantom comes in and saves the day. So next issue will be a double issue. It will be in the end of August with 100 pages. It's the stories Towns Ellerby and Hello the Himalayas from Tony DePaul and Mike Manley. It will also have the very classic Death from the Sky and a new album of Red Pirate. See you then. Happy Phantoming.
All right, and we're back, and I must say a huge sorry to Olm. I absolutely knew you were going to be doing that review of the Mitton book, but just somehow lost control of that as I was doing the introduction. Got carried away with Europe, I suppose, and penciling Sweden and France in together somehow. Don't know how I managed that. Anyway, thank you so much again to everyone who contributes from all over the world and helps make Chronicle Chamber, the Expand podcast, truly international, which is what we hope, certainly what we aspire to be, because the fandom is an international hero for so many people, as we know. And the way that he has managed to do that, the way that he continues to do that, is through the Sunday and the daily strips that are being, well, I can't say published in the papers anymore. We'll get to that soon, but they are certainly still available from King Features and on comicskingdom.com. Let's talk about the Sunday first. Now, Jem, I know this is a particular passion for you, and people will have perhaps seen the YouTube video that you've put up by now about the Temple of the Gods, not saga, I'm not going to say, but the genre, I suppose, or this story arc, Return of the Temple of the Gods, is the latest in a number of Temple of the Gods stories. And if people haven't checked out that video of yours yet, they absolutely should. Anything you want to summarize in 60 seconds or less?
No, just watched the video, which is 10 minutes, so that might be bad. Basically, I go through the 2 dailies and I go through the 4 Team Fantomen stories. There's a lot of people that might have read the dailies, might have read the Sundays or one or the other, but they might have not read the Team Fantomen ones. Or if you're like us, that was 15 years ago, and you probably haven't had a chance to go back and read them. So hopefully a 10-minute video will help you go, oh, yes, I remember that now. Oh, yes, that's. And then, have you seen it yet, Duncan?
Your video? Yes, I have.
Okay. I asked him, and he goes, "Video? What video?"
Well, if that's you, if you're saying what video, check the show notes in the link below. I'm sure there will be a link to the video there. So, but let's focus on the last, I guess, 4 or 5 weeks of the Return of the Temple of the Gods story. I guess what I want to ask you, both you guys, Duncan, I'll start with you. In the last 4 or 5 weeks, what's happened? Anything?
They're in the temple, and it's the Temple of the Gods, Dan. So it's, I think what
They're spending a lot of time in this room.
It's a bit like The Visitor, where
like,
every time the Phantom gets caught underground, he seems to go for a long walk, like in
the rat must die would attribute to that as well.
This is some brilliant marketing by Tony and Jeff Weigel, right? So they're trying to say, how do we broaden the Phantom audience? And, what do people like now? People like renovation shows. So essentially, Paul Ryan did his interpretation of what the Temple of Gods look like. And for the last few weeks, we're seeing Jeff Weigel's room reveal of what he thinks the Temple of Gods looks like. No, I think what's been happening is both Tony in his script and Jeff in his beautiful art and the way that it's been coloured, we're really getting an evolution of the relationship between Diana and the Phantom. And so I think this is as much a story about those two as it is about whatever those dark eyes are in the corner of this temple. And being a fan of Tony's work, I think there's going to be a payoff when it gets to the end, and that's why we're building up this the relationship between the two of them and the play that they're having between the two of them, all the way from when they're on the way there and he tried to ditch her to Diana turning up. I think that's going to pay off as the story moves on.
I think what's also nice is that in the daily story, the Phantom and Diana are not together in the What If story, which we'll discuss. So it's nice to have a mirror image of where they are a team, and it kind of reassures Phantom fans of like, hey, Tony DuPaul does not sit up all hours of the night trying to think, now, how can I destroy this comic? He's not doing that. And so, it's like, here's a nice story where they're working together, where, the Phantom is reminded that Diana is going to be a key element, a key asset in this story. She's probably going to save his life. Spoiler alert. But so it's a nice mirror image of what's happened in the daily story.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Jim, and I'm glad you made it, because and we'll talk about the daily, but it is that nice dichotomy that we can have our hearts assuaged by the fact that they do still talk to each other and they are working together, and it's a great point you make, Duncan, about the development of the character of Diana. And I guess we were shown that from the very first week of the story, when she wanted to see what was on the video that the Phantom was looking at, and he would try to protect her from that. And I guess we're seeing a continuation of that up to now, and it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds going forward.
I think one of the reasons why we are underground for a while is not because, the Phantom can't see the sun, so he's lost all, his mind, and he's just spending lots of time underground. It's recapping fans of what's happened, like, beforehand. So he talks about the third Phantom. He talks about, I've been through here before, and so then they talk. We've talked about it last issue, but he talks about the submarine. So, seeing it has been 15 years between the panel, the stories, I feel like Tony DuPaul and Jeff Weigel are spending probably a month or two kind of getting everyone up to speed of what's happened. Because let's face it, unfortunately, not everyone knows about Chronicle Chamber, so they haven't seen our video. And, Tony DuPaul didn't put in here, for those who want to know more about this, go to Chronicle Chamber, watch the video. He didn't know we were going to do that video. If he did, he might have been able to cut it down a little bit and just have our little bit.ly link in the bottom corner. But look, it gives the ability for people to be able to be caught up with what's happening and to learn a bit about the build-up, which has been 15 years in the past.
Hmm. All right. Look, I think we leave the Sunday there because I'm really keen to get to the daily. The Phantom's End is the story that we're on, and I guess in the week we're recording this on a Monday. What we've just seen, I guess, in the week ending last Saturday, is literally the end of the Phantom as so far as the story that Moz has been telling. We've seen in the last month, we've seen the Phantom get killed. And we're going to explore the way that happens a little bit and what we see on that journey. We see the Phantom buried. We see his rings and his belt passed on to Kit Jr., but we also see before the end of Moz's story that Kit Jr. suffers a similar fate within a year of the end of his father. So this really is, as far as Moz's story is concerned, not just the end of the 21st Phantom, but the end of the Phantom line entirely.
Well, no, of that part, because you got to remember he did have twins with Savannah, so there's the Phantom line can still continue, but it's the end of that branch.
Yeah, fair point. And Heloise is still there, but I guess the rings and the belt are pretty key. But no, you make a good point.
Yeah, like I said, I usually do. No. Look, to be honest, this is a lot of fans. This is really divided fans, and I've seen it on social media. I've seen it on the Comic Kingdom website. There's there's fans either are really enjoying where Tony DePaul is maybe taking this, and that he's challenging long-standing laws of the Phantom. And then there's other fans that are like, oh, the Phantom's eyes, which we're seeing now on the 15th of August. You know, you've totally ruined the Phantom for me. You know, how dare you do this to me? The Phantom's dead. How dare you do this to me? This, you know, there's a huge divide between Phantom fans. There's not many fans in the middle. So like, where are you guys? Are you guys on the you've ruined my Phantom, or are you on the side of I'm interested to see where Tony's taking this? Dan?
No, I'm interested to see where Tony's taking this. It's not comfortable reading. There's no doubt about that. It's decidedly unpleasant reading at times. It's very easy when you are in Moz's story for 6 panels in a row for a week, or 6 strips in a row for a week, or 2 weeks. So there's been plenty of time where we've been in Moz's story for long enough to start to forget that it's Moz's story again. And it's challenging reading, but I'm certainly enjoying it. Yeah, I say this all the time when it comes to the dailies. I'm really looking forward to reading it as a collection of strips in a Frew comic. But it's a stark reality for men, and I use the term advisedly, but men who have taken on the cowl and put on the rings of the Phantom, and that's been their reality when they go to work every day. That's exactly how it could end up, and somehow we've been lucky enough across 21 generations that the Phantom's made it home every time, to have his son, for the most part, take over his role. But it could happen. It could easily happen in this line of work that you don't make it home.
Well, it does happen. It's happened 20 times before.
3 times before?
No, 20 times before.
Yeah, I mean, but not even to make it home to the Skull Cave. Not even to have your corpse buried in the crypt. So, yeah.
That was a curse that the 20th Phantom's ghost who turned into the flaming skeleton predicted back, or said was going to happen back in 2020. There's an article.
It's all part of a story arc that Tony's been working on for a long time. Yeah.
What about you, Duncan? Got some thoughts, Dad?
I'll go back. It is confronting, as Dan said, and it would be to a casual reader as well. So people that are just reading this Phantom strip in the newspaper and go away on holidays and don't get the free newspaper from work or whatever, and they miss a bit of the story, and then they come back, or they're only occasional readers, or they remember it from their childhood. They're not avidly keeping up with the story. Will be confronted by it because they go, well, that's not what I remember. That's not what I'm used to. Why does Garfield like Odie now? And I think the thing to remember is Tony's been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
And I've been doing this for a long time. And they are not going to make moves like this lightly.
No.
So storytellers as talented as both of them are not going to make these decisions for no reason.
Mm.
And they're gonna do it because they want to pay off later.
Mm.
And it's the loyal reader that's going to be rewarded with that or want to lynch them. So, and this happens all the time with the stories that are beloved, like when Dan Slott was getting death threats for putting Doc Ock's brain inside Peter Parker and becoming Spider-Man. People were outraged, and fans are always outraged. It just goes to a cycle. So this is our turn. So I'm just interested to see where they go with it, because it is every time you say, "Oh, it's a dream," "Oh, it's Bengali sleeping powder," "Oh, it's this," he finds a way to say, "No, it's not."
Yeah.
Maybe it's just he's going to wake up. No, maybe
Yeah.
this is going to happen. That belt's going to get handed over.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm with you in that I have complete faith that Tony and Mike are taking us in a place that Tony in particular very much wants to take us, and he will have a payoff in the end. We know that from some of the things we've seen, even if you scroll back a couple of panels there, Germ, to where the Phantom's getting buried. It's exactly that can of rocks that we saw, this one here, that we saw 2 years ago or 18 months ago in the foretelling. Probably that exact scene you were talking about, Germ, with the skeleton. We know that within this story, the nasty sheriff has been killed and found because of a comment that he made, an aside he made about spending time on the beach in retirement or something along those lines, which Tony first dropped 5 years previously. So he absolutely knows what he's doing, and maybe his head is 5 years into the future of what we're looking at now, and it probably is, knowing him.
Yeah.
And I agree. I'm really looking forward to the payoff. It's it's going to be a mighty one, I suspect.
Yeah. So with those two things that we just talked about, there are articles on our website. There will be links in our show notes and on the, whether it's the YouTube or on the, if you're looking at it on our website, where you can actually go have a look at that. This scene here on the 15th of September, where Kit is at the burial site with the rocks and he's holding the rock. It's now, I'm not sure if this is just coincidence or I'm reading way too much into it, which I probably am, but it's like the scene you would expect him to do if this story didn't happen, when he is swearing on the skull to take over the Phantom's role. But instead it's a rock which is bearing it, and then he picks it up and he says, "You should be with our ancestors, etc., etc. I can't do anything about that," and then puts it back down. And like I said, I'm probably reading way too much in there.
I don't think you are, mate. I think those first two panels in that in particular, you substitute out a rock, you substitute that rock out for a skull, and he's swearing the oath. So I don't think you're reading too much into that at all.
And then I guess you get this is just a ghastly scene, where Kit's body's not even buried. It's apparently, I was talking to someone who I haven't seen it personally, but saw the black and white version of this that Mike Manley did, and he said it looks way better in black and white, and it looks so ghastly and so confronting of this panel, which is the 17th of September in black and white.
Oh, I can imagine it would be. I enjoy the creative license that, and maybe it's true, I don't know, that hair deteriorates, decomposes much longer after skin has faded away. But yeah, that image of a bearded skeleton with a hole in the skull just left to rot. It's fairly macabre.
Yeah. Cool. So anything you just want to add, or is just... All right.
Just to touch on the eyes. Obviously,
Oh, yeah.
as the Phantom is having his last moments and has been mortally wounded, then stands up to take the final shot. We do see his eyes and his face, and I guess that was something that you commented on there before, Jim, made specific mention of, that people were really frustrated with or did not enjoy at all. What was your take on that, Duncan, when you first saw it?
I immediately went to my, what interpretation of this is that it's not the Phantom's eyes?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it past tense because he's dead and he's passed over? Is it a dream? Is it an imposter? Is it someone else with his mask on? Has someone got who was the artist that did it in the Samara story?
Bill again. Bill again.
Someone got Lignanti, found Lignanti's old sketches and traced over it. And that's when I went, there's got to be a reason why they're doing this. And so now I'm just patiently waiting, like a loyal fan, to see what that reason is.
So we had a bit of a chat with Tony DePaul about this scene. We've posted some of the comments on an article on our website. For me, I read too much into this. I saw it as, when you see the Phantom's eyes, it's when he's dead. And so, like, this was him dead. So, he's now seeing the ghost, and it's sort of true. And then, like, I was reading even more into it, say, like on the 17th of August, where he's got his eyes closed. It's like now he's half alive, fighting for his life, and and then it's symbol. We talked about it symbolized in the previous stories of when he's blind, his eyes are black. I was kind of picturing it from that, is that it's the life ebbing, it's the battle of his life, whether he's dying or whether he's battling to stay alive and all that. That's where I kind of pictured it is. But yeah, I read a bit too much into that. Tony DePaul told me that basically, I was reading too much into it. But yeah, he gave us some thoughts, which I put on an article on the website as well, which I think is worth. And to be fair, Mike Manley's not the first person to draw the Phantom's eyes in a daily or Sunday story as well.
If the old jungle saying is that he who looks on the Phantom's unmasked face will die a horrible death, does that mean that the Murdoch syndicated comic pages were reading that strip?
Oh, very good. So you're saying that the reason why News Corp has stopped publishing the Phantom is actually Tony's fault?
I suppose, and to your point there, Duncan, and to take this seriously and put it back into the story, because that's real. There is actually, unless it's Manju through the scope, there's not actually anyone around to see his unmasked face and die a horrible death. So it's not like the old jungle saying hasn't come true. It's just that there was no one there to see it. Did the tree fall in the forest? No.
I don't think there's a forest in this story, though.
No, but if there's no one there to see the Phantom's eyes, did his face mask really come off?
Yes. But I think it's a good segue talking about the demise of certain newspapers. So we'll move into that one.
Absolutely. So that is the big news over the last month or so. And we've seen in Australia, and Stephen's written an excellent article, again, on the chroniclechamber.com website, about the cancellation of the King Features strips and all comics in their newspapers. The Phantom is just collateral damage, really, in a bigger decision that has been made by News Corp in Australia. So that's 4 or 5 major newspapers, major city newspapers around Australia that no longer have those being printed. And unfortunately, for I guess dollars at the end of the day, it also means they're no longer on their website, which you wouldn't have thought would.
I think some of them have it on their website still.
Well, that's not what I took from Steve's article. I thought that they're no longer appearing on the. If you're a subscriber to the Courier Mail or the Herald Sun, you can no longer read the Phantom, certainly, as part of your subscription.
Yeah, I thought I heard. I don't know. We'll verify that some way or the other. But I thought I heard Stephen say that there was one of them. But yeah, I could be wrong.
Okay. And I gather there's is it Lee Enterprises in no connection to Lee Falk, but Lee Enterprises in America has also decided to cancel their strips.
Yes, and that's 77 newspapers in America that's been cancelled, which came probably 3 or 4 days afterwards. So the cynic in me, all right, now the cynic in me makes me think that the annual license expired recently, and that's the reason why you have two large media companies deciding at the same time to cancel.
Yeah. And maybe the next contract was going to cost them a little bit more, perhaps, and that was enough.
Yeah, that's just the cynic in me. I'm sure I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. Is it a coincidence that two major newspapers in two different continents made a decision, the same decision?
Unless Duncan said it was because we all saw his face, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, or maybe Murdoch owns Lee Enterprises as well.
Well, that would not surprise.
Yeah, but
it's definitely a financial decision. But what I learned out of this, and I didn't realise, and so now I'm going to make a conscious effort to go and do it, is I read the strips through the Facebook pages of Jeff Weigel and Mike Manley because they're easier to read than some of the other digital ways you can do it, and I'm not always near a paper. So, but apparently there's a click through that goes to the creators for going through the Comics Kingdom website. So if you're listening and you want to continue to support those creators, if you're reading it on their Facebook page, also take the time to go and click through to support.
Well, there you go. I did make the case a while ago because there was, and it wasn't either of the two creators, but there's a few people who screenshot the strip and then posted into one of the many Phantom Facebook groups, and you can read it that way too. And I did make the point a while ago that maybe we shouldn't be doing that and actually go to Comics Kingdom just for the web traffic. But I didn't realise that actually. So you're saying that the artists actually receive half a cent or whatever it might be every time you click on and read theirs through the Comics Kingdom website.
I didn't know, but Mike Manley mentioned it on his Facebook feed.
Right.
I did follow up this with Mike. He did say, because I didn't know that either, Duncan. I think we were in the same chat on the Facebook. And we were like, oh, I didn't know that. And then you said it, I said it, and a few others said it as well. Mike said he was going to get some clarification on that. He said he was going to let me know if he found out before the podcast, but obviously that hasn't happened.
But even if it's not monetary, it's one of the only places now that you can demonstrate the traffic or the what's it called, analytics of the interest in the site. So it is. I don't think they're getting that information from every time you like Jeff or Mike's post. It's the only way you can features is finding out is by looking at the analytics from that website. And if they're making financial decisions like that and cancelling Batgirl and all the things going on, anything we can do to support the creators who are keeping the stories alive, I think it behoves us to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Yeah. All right. So other than all of us spreading that word, any other thoughts on how we can get people going to Comics Kingdom? Or like, do we have to clamp down on these pirates who are screenshotting and putting into Facebook groups and say, look, stop doing that because it doesn't.
I reckon a bit of education. Like if they knew that, hey, post the link or something like that. Some people just won't care. But if they were, I'm sounding really old in this podcast, but if we just educate the people.
21 generations devoted their life to fight piracy in all forms.
Yeah, but I think it's look, I don't think people will realise that. I don't think it will stop people pirating, but I think it might. I think some people might go, oh, okay, well, we'll go onto the website. And then I think some people will make mention of the quality of some of the comments on the Comics Kingdom website on the comment section. And look, let's be honest, I wrote on there once talking about fans, and I used the PH, and had this guy try and start a flame war with me. Oh, you sound like an 8-year-old kid, there is that low-level scum on that website, but there is actually some good conversations on there as well, and it's like anything. It's like Facebook's like that, Twitter's like that, Instagram's like that. So look, get on there, have a go. Post some comments, because like what Duncan said, it's one of the only ways that King Features will actually see that there's still fans out there, that fans with a PH, of course. Hello, Malibu Ed.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. Always never going to listen to.
Revenge is a dish best served at the 90-minute mark of a comics and news podcast.
But no, in all seriousness, you got to go on there and click through and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
I think they've also got a special for a 70-day or a 30-day or something like that premium free account as well, which means you can actually access old strips all the way back to the 60s or the 70s as well.
Yeah,
and
right.
We've actually just helped the archivist at King Features find a long lost strip that they couldn't find as well. So,
well done. That's the sort of thing they should be doing, because you do see the ad on Facebook that they're running about, are you upset? Let us know, sort of thing. Instead of that, because that's futile, we're not going back. Rupert Murdoch's not going to change his mind, and it's not coming back into the papers. But what they should be doing is take. Sorry, Duncan.
He's known for being understanding and compassionate,
isn't he? And on behalf of Australia to the rest of the world, we're sorry. Look, what they need to be doing is posting ads for exactly that sort of deal. Oh, are you missing your comics in your newspapers? Here, sign up and you get the first month free, or half price deals, and talk about, because I haven't seen that advertised anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that they really should be doing right now while the iron's hot.
Yeah, that might be. So Chronicle Chamber's got an account with that, so we might actually do a bit of a tour and do a bit of a video. So we'll add that to the list of things, and we might do for those who've come in late for the Golden People story, like we did with the Temple of the Gods as well. So we'll have those videos up in the next week or two as well.
I swear we have these podcasts just so you can think of ideas for future videos, Jerm. It's also always a gold mine. All right. We'll keep moving on. Look, we have already talked about the Masked Marvel poster, so I do want to catch up with you though, Jerm, because I think this is the first time we've actually spoken since you released the. Oh no, we talked to Paul Mason, but we didn't get the opportunity to really explore the Phantom going digital. That podcast you did back in episode number 227 with David Barry and John, I want to say, I forget his name, but the guy who is keen on the NFTs of the Phantom and that whole digital world that he's keen to explore and, I guess, invest in. It's probably been a couple of months now since you recorded that. Before we get your reflections on your takeaway as someone who was there, Duncan, have you had the chance to listen to that interview that Jerm did?
I have, and I've spoken to the team behind the NFT as well. It is a fascinating project that they're embarking on, and I think it's. I think that he's a bit of a visionary, and the concept that he wants to explore, and I think that's why during the interview, Jermaine keeps coming back and going, "Yeah, just dumb it down for me a little bit. Just explain to me exactly what you want to do." And he's so passionate about it. He's sort of going off on some exploring all of the different ways that blockchain technology can be more effectively used in the collectible space or the collector's space. And he keeps saying that Phantom's just the start. Just like he was the first masked superhero, he's going to be the start of this vision that he's got. And it's brilliant because it's great for us as fans, because a rising tide lifts all boats. And so he's trying to say no one knows about your character. There's a bunch of people in Scandinavia, people in India, and a bunch of old Australians that are sitting around at the newspaper shop buying their comic books. And he said it doesn't have the reach into the zeitgeist that it needs to be as popular as, like, he's making that comparison. He goes, I've got this the highest graded, Ace Comics, one of the early appearances of the Phantom, and it's not getting anywhere near the kind of reach that a Guardians of the Galaxy #1 that no one gave a crap about 15 years ago. All of a sudden is now fetching, in tens of thousands of US dollars. And he's going, does not compute. It's because there's no groundswell of support behind this Ace Comics, behind this character. And he's trying to say, this is a way that we can do that. And by uniting all of the collectors to be part of that story, you're making your own future, and you're all invested in it because you all want to see the character continue on. So it needs that support behind it, because as the fans die out, the character will die out. And he's saying he doesn't want that. And he moves all these other comics on backwards and forwards because they're just things, and they're collectibles that he moves on. But the story behind that book means something to him because the character means something to him. And he's investing all this time in talking to David and Cy to make sure that one of the most important people that's still alive, that's to do with why this character is as popular as it is now, he wants to tie that all together and move that legend forward, not just tie it into the legend of Cy Barry and the legend of the Phantom, and push those things together and say, this is an important part of history that we need to preserve. And he kept using the term museum and preserve and curate, talking about a long-term vision for capturing something that, if someone doesn't do something, will disappear.
So what about you, Dan?
Dumb it down for me, because I was like you when listening to Germ. I was wanting to ask exactly the same questions, and not so much dumb it down for me, but okay, so practically though, what's actually happening? And that's where I get caught on this. I think you're absolutely right about the vision, and I love the concept, but I just don't understand how to get to that. I just don't, and whether that's a blocker in mine that I've got, because I just don't understand the technology and I don't appreciate it. But the whole crypto space and everything that comes with it is really difficult to gather for myself anyway.
I think the steps to get on board with this project, because they're still waiting on approvals and everything. And like you said, the next thing, then he's tranche 2, 3, 4, 26, 27, 28. A lot of them aren't properties that are bound by the IP, they're public domain. And so it sounds like he wants those things could probably be ready faster, but it's important to him to make it the his first. And I think for fans that are struggling to get on board, I think it's an education for ourselves to first look at what is blockchain technology, what is that crypto world, what is an NFT now, and what he's talking about with Collect is what's next. What is the evolution of having an NFT where there's a digital thing that you have and there's no physical copy you might hold? It's just a bunch of ones and zeros that everyone has agreed it's worth something. That's all it is. It's an agreement that it's worth something, that you can, that as long as the interest increases, the value increases, you can give it to someone else. And cryptocurrency is the same thing, where you turn around and say it's a bunch of ones and zeros, and it's a bunch of computers solving a problem, and the computer gets rewarded for solving the maths equation, and that's how the Bitcoin maintains its security, and that's how it grows in value. And then people sell it or exchange there's the finite number of Bitcoins, which is why you start to sell 0.2105 of a Bitcoin. They made a finite amount in the first place, and there's no more Bitcoin. You can't make any more. And so they can break up the Bitcoin that's there, and it makes it the portion of the Bitcoin is worth X amount of money. And if everyone agrees that it's worth 2 times what it was worth yesterday, it's worth 2 times what it was worth yesterday, until something happens like Elon Musk makes his own, and then everything disappears and falls off a cliff. And then everyone says, well, now it's worth 50 cents again. The collect is about a paradigm shift for the entire collectors community and the collectors market. Instead of saying, here is a book and it's in this condition, and there was one of 199 have been destroyed, so this is the last one left, and I'm going to get CGC to store it in plastic, and I'm going to put it in a safe in a hermetically sealed room and keep it there for 20 years, and then come back out and auction it at Heritage. He's saying that the technology exists that you can own a part of whatever the thing is, whether it's a documentary or a film or a piece of artwork, where you've got access to it. And it might be that that's what the nut he's trying to crack with his finance mind, because his background's in banking and creating finance products, is how do I make it so that it's accessible to a kid that who's got a small amount of value to invest, but a lot of interest in the thing, and versus someone who's a millionaire who wants to have a higher influence in it. And the ownership of the piece becomes part of its pedigree. And when you pass on, or when you pass it on, the heritage of that piece, the pedigree of that piece goes with it. And I bought a Giordano Batman piece about 10 years ago, and it was an early version of a digital, what's it called when you have digital provenance, where it came from Giordano's personal collection, and it went through a dealer, and then it came to me. And there's a digital trail that goes back, like a certificate of authenticity, that if I ever sell that piece, I can sell that digital trail with that piece. So it says this is where that piece came from. And NFT is kind of an evolution of that thought process, because the blockchain technology gained popularity. And I think why we're having trouble getting our head around what collect is all about is collect is still designing what it's all about. And so it's all about, he's talking about the potential of what collect could be. And we're still struggling with, actually, I don't even know the concept of NFT properly. I think it's a digital print, and I don't get to have anything.
Yeah.
So I think Bitcoin is something that crooks use on the dark web. And if you go back to money is just an agreement that we've all had to say this paper is worth, or this polymer is worth this much, this amount. And it used to be, US dollar used to be underwritten by gold, and the British pound used to be underwritten by silver or sterling, and that's all gone now. It's all ones and zeros that we're saying we agree it's worth that much money. And the NFT market is the people who are coming up behind us, who are the collectors of the future. That's where their mindset is. They don't want the piece of paper. That whatever psychologically sets off in our head to say we need to have this because it's got that letterhead on it, it's got the Phantom letterhead on it, and we've got to have all of them, and they've got to be lined up and neat and tidy in asset-proof bags and put into a filing cabinet. Because my kids are never going to read it. He's trying to tap into the people that have grown up with a tablet or a device in their hand. They think digitally.
But you sit there not just holding up a comic, but surrounded in the background by original artwork as well. And anyone who owns some original artwork understands the concept of having the only one, and that certainly makes it special. And the nature of the image and that sort of thing, and we might have personal connection with that artwork, whatever that looks like, is important as well. This is exactly what you sort of elucidated there about the bit I struggle with an NFT is, if I've got that on my phone and I take a screenshot of it, that can go anywhere and everyone owns it. Like, it's surely just a screenshot or a snip or a print screen of the NFT while you've actually got it up and looking at it. And suddenly isn't that then you can repeat that multiple times and boom, it's everywhere. Like, how is it any better than a digital print? I don't get it.
And I think it's about the and I think it's about how you can prove the right or the ownership.
That it was the first one.
That it's either the original or because he's talking about, and I may be wrong, but the way I interpreted the way it was being presented by Collect is they're starting off with a piece designed by Cy, but it's also they want to capture the story behind that, and he kept talking about it being in the form of a documentary or a book or something like that, where there is a way to tell the story behind the picture. So it's not just about art where you say, I like that because it makes me feel this. It's I like that because it makes me feel this. And here is the reason behind it. This is what the person who created it was thinking. This was their story. And so in 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years time, someone is looking back at that piece and go, I like that. And they go, Cy, who? Oh my God, look at this person. And they did this when they were 94, 30 years after they retired from doing this character. Like it's all about that story that you and I know, but someone new to that piece will just see, oh, that's just a nice picture of a guy in tights.
So practically, again, and I know I keep going back to this, but you've got artwork there on the wall behind you. Would that become a screen, an iPad, for instance, that's hanging on the wall, showing that image, and then you press it, you tap it, and then you're watching the documentary? Or is that what you mean?
I don't know, and that's what I think they're not releasing because they haven't tidied up all the legal side of it yet, and I think they're waiting for from King Features about, hey, these are all the ideas we've got. Which ones can we do? But I'd say it would be. I think there'll be an original piece. I think Cy will do an original piece somewhere on a piece of canvas or book. And then I think that they will capture that. But I don't think it's just about the picture of it. I think it's about a documentary or some sort of product behind it, and then all this provenance to prove that piece, where that piece came from, how it's connected to the physical piece of art. And then if you're the owner and you buy it and you want to monetize that documentary because it gets used in a bonus scenes in a streaming service for the next Phantom production that gets brought out, or it gets used in a retrospective about the 100 greatest comic strip artists in American history or whatever, and they talk about Cy Barry, then the money goes back to the owner, which is you. And that's why I keep saying that King Features, until that character's in public domain, King Features can get their kick out of whatever gets monetized out of that as well. And if you put it on diaries or products, or Frew uses it as a cover, that the everyone who's got part of the ownership of that thing gets a kick back from it.
Right.
It's a percentage of it.
Okay.
I think that's what they're talking about with the actual one with Cy. But I think it's about the vision of where this can go.
If it works out and half of what gets talked about actually comes into becomes reality, it can be a game changer for the Phantom. It could bring the Phantom into the current and future generations. And I think that's the exciting thing about it, is that at the moment, we've joked about it several times in this podcast, but the Phantom's in Australia especially, the Phantom's for old people. It's one thing that I see, because my daughter now, she's 7, just turning 8. She's now gotten into Pokemon. And one of the ways that Pokemon has, Pokemon was around when we were kids. And one of the ways that Pokemon has re-established itself and even gotten bigger now is because of the Pokemon Go video game. They turned a card game into a digital thing where you can go around and collect digital Pokemons. And it's revolutionized the whole concept. And something like this could revolutionize the Phantom. It could be the tipping point for us to get a TV show or a movie, or it could be going, King Features could be going, look, we've got this. This is coming out. And then a TV show go, okay, well, a TV company can go, we're going to do a TV show that backs on with that. So then that way the documentary that of Cybarry comes in with this, the provenance, the history, can kind of go in with that. And I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything like that, but if what they're talking about happens, it could change the Phantom. I think another key point is he made an interesting point where he's talking about, I think he said he had two sons, a 28-year-old and a 24-year-old. And he made the interesting point that the 28-year-old doesn't get NFTs, but the son who's like 3 or 4 years, 2, 3, 4 years younger than him, knows NFTs, understands it, buys NFTs and stuff like that as well. And I think you're right, there is that generational gap when it comes to NFTs. I was offered as payment for a job 20 Bitcoin. I turned it down and asked for money instead. One of the most stupidest mistakes I've ever made in my life. I didn't understand. I'm going, no, why would I want $40 worth? This is when Bitcoin is worth $22 each. Why do I want $40 when I can have, $400? So, yeah.
And Dan, to go back to your point, to the point I was making about we kind of need to educate ourselves before we can understand what Scott was talking about with Collect, because that conversation will either go away because this will go nowhere, or it will continue to evolve, and we sort of need to catch up now.
Yep.
And for the percentage of your audience that doesn't understand what blockchain is, or and it just thinks cryptocurrencies over here and it's a fad, it'll go away. Carly Simon wrote Your So Vain, right? And she had notably gone out with several personalities, like high-profile personalities, and everyone was making all these rumors and speculation about who the story was about. Who is you think this song is about you? And it was Warren Beatty, it was all these different people. And there was an auction, like 20 years after the song came out, there was an auction where she auctioned off the knowledge that she would tell one person what the song was about. And it went for a ridiculous amount of money at this charity auction. And she just went over and whispered it in the ear. But as soon as that guy tells somebody else that's Warren Beatty, the value is gone from the thing that he bought. But at the moment when he bought it, because everyone wanted to know, and he was the only one who knew, she would have told her mates, but he was the only one who knew in the public, and this is before the internet. That thing, that it was nothing. It was a secret.
It's not even ones and zeros.
It's just ones and now it's just ones and zeros.
Yeah.
It's what I agree that it's worth, and that's exactly what collecting is. This is 5 cents worth of paper and ink.
Yeah.
But I paid $10.50 for it, and another $4 for it to get delivered into my mailbox.
And then the $1 for the acid-free tape bag and all that. So yeah,
$1 for a bag of cards or whatever. Yeah, whatever. All those things, right?
Yeah. Interesting. I'm probably not going to solve it, but I think we should move on, Dan, because this podcast will never get Duncan on again because he's blown this podcast out to 3 hours.
No, what I will say, though, as we move on is thank you, Duncan, because I think you've just explained in 15 minutes there. You've cut through. I'm still not 100% understanding what's going on, but I feel like I understand it better thanks to the way you explained that. It's probably the best explanation I've heard of cryptocurrency and NFTs. So thanks, mate. And I hope that everyone else who's listening to this is taking another step along that journey, perhaps. So, all right, as we move on, Regal Publishers, we mentioned them before. As we were going through our comics phase, they've got an anniversary special either out or coming out. What is this? It must be their second anniversary.
I think it is. It's second year, issue 25.
I have not been watching any of Facebook. I have no idea what this is, Germ. I probably should have read an article on chroniclechamber.com. I bet you're going to tell me. But
should have. So it's got a couple. So it's the first time Regal have published Cybari stories in the new version. It's got a beautiful painted cover in the likeness of Cybari and another artist who I can't remember, but is an Indian artist. I can verify that Cybari has seen that image and he was very impressed with that image and he liked the image a lot. So that's a big tick of approval for that. A couple of stories, I think they're all being coloured. It'll be interesting to see if Regal does more Cybari Leafhawk stories. And again, as we said before, Ankit will do a review of that, and I'm sure Frew will have a couple of limited copies that they'll sell on their website and let everyone know about that as well.
Duncan, I've never asked you, I don't think. Do you collect the international publishers as well from India? Do you collect the Fantomen books and that sort of thing?
I do. I've got a subscription to Fantomen, and I get the Fantomen when they're released, and the Indian ones I've been picking up as well.
And what are your thoughts on the Regals?
I think they're fantastic quality. It's great to see those the Kingfisher stories in colour on glossy paper, and I think Ankit and the Indian creators are doing a fantastic job with the covers and the internal work that they're doing. I really like the quality of the productions. I'd like to see that kind of product here, and I think it would be quite popular with readers, particularly young readers, because it's accessible and it looks more like what they're used to reading.
Is that because you got your face in one of the comics?
If it's sold out, there's no point in me plugging it.
Oh, well done. Love that comment. Love that comment. Yeah, moving on.
Right. So staying overseas, we've already mentioned a couple of these, but not the 2022 Christmas album from Fantomen. It's available for pre-order now. Does that come as part of a subscription normally, or is that something?
No, it's separate. So this is actually produced by Semic. Egmont helps them and gives them all the stuff, but it's actually a Semic production. And for those who like a little bit of tidbits and a bit of Phantom history, the Fantomen Christmas album is the longest in time, the longest ongoing, still produced Phantom publication in the world. Beats Frew.
Because they put out one each year since, 1938?
1944, I believe
44.
it was.
Yeah.
So it's the longest ongoing publication, yeah.
Frew might drop off the numbers of issues published, but...
Yeah, of course. But, got to give the Swedes something to hang their hat on. So, yeah, look, there's some great cover art and some great comics as well. I've got one of my aims is to collect all of them. I'm about 2/3 of the way through all of those at the moment. I'm sure Duncan's got the complete set ready for the NFT.
He's scanning them in.
Yeah, so once it's available for purchase, it usually comes out late October, early November. I'm just had a quick fear that I got my months mixed up, but no, that's right. So I think it's usually late October, early November the Christmas album comes out, and we'll have a review of that on our website in due course.
Also, in due course will be the review of the Heart of Darkness trade paperback we mentioned earlier, and the Fantomen soft cover album. Mikael mentioned both of those. We talked about them at the time. Anything else you want to add there, Jim?
No, just keep an eye on our website, through our socials, our website, chroniclechamber.com. It is worth making mention that if you go to our website, chroniclechamber.com, you can put your email address in the little pop-up box that annoys everyone, and then you will be notified when there's a new post coming up. So that's the reason why it's annoying you, because it makes you stick your email address in there, so that way you'll be notified.
Right. I'm glad to hear there's method to the madness. While you're at the website, of course, you can check out the review of the Boss Fight figures. The Boss Fight Studios Phantom and Hero, or Phantomen's character and steed set, Phantom and Hero. The video you put together, Jim, was well done. Have you picked up the steed and the Boss Fight Phantom, Duncan?
I pre-ordered the phase 1, whatever it was, tier 1, whatever it was, Phantom figures. They came 2 weeks ago
Right.
from the very first run, and I ordered the ones you just held up through a reseller in Australia, and they're here at the same time. I just haven't picked them up, but he's got them.
Yeah. No, very good.
The figures look fantastic. I've seen them, and they look fantastic.
They really do. As Germ said in his review, I think the most difficult thing for a non-horse person is working out how to pose the legs so they don't look like they're. I've actually been going back and looking at some of Jeremy McPherson's work, Germ, to see how he draws horses, so I can learn how to pose the bloody thing in a way that looks somewhat natural and not like he's. See, even there, that looks like that back leg is going backwards now. What's going on?
So I did 2 reviews of this. My first one, I'm just
had it swiveled.
First one, I'm like, oh, I don't like it. You can't do it. You know, like the Phantom falls off, and it wasn't until, and this is why I stressed this point in my second video, which is the one that's actually online, is that you got to move the Phantom's thighs. So he actually stays on the Phantom on Hero. And then the trick is you got to use that stick. And if you don't use the stick and you don't rotate the Phantom's thighs, it is a complete basket case. And you look at it and it falls apart. Like I was doing the review, and like I got it, and then I breathed and it fell over, and I'm just like, oh, this is really frustrating. And then I did a review panning the whole thing, but then I realized if you rotate the thighs, use the stick, it actually works. And then what was funny is the illustrator of the beautiful artwork, Loston Wallace, I think from memory, he actually commented, and he made a bit of a slight comment that he can tell that I'm not a horse person by the way that my horse looked in the video. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but look, it is a great set. It's worth the money. They look nice. It's nice to be able to get something that looks good on a shelf, whether you pull it apart or not. I had some minor little quibbles with the packaging, which I've talked about. But yeah, go have a look at the review. You won't be disappointed in getting it.
Oh, look, I think one thing I'd love to have work more effectively is that the Phantom's hand can hold onto the rein a little bit better. But my goodness, that's such a quibble for what is a really magnificent piece. And like if I'd had access to this toy when I was 13, 14, like you'd think you were in heaven. Like I had a Defenders of the Earth Galoob figure that I love to death, and it's so primitive compared to what we've got here with the boss fight. The quality of it is just amazing, and I think every Phantom fan should have one, absolutely, and play with it, and get it out of the box and actually have a play with it, pose it in different ways. Do what you need to do to have a positive experience with it. Twiddle with the thighs and put the feet in the stirrups. But I just can't be praise the boss fight crew enough with this, and the fact that it's so playable directly out of the box. Like all of the joints are really smooth. It's the guns fit neatly in the hands and in the holsters. There's so much attention to detail with even the tiny rings on these tiny hands. You can absolutely tell which one's the good mark and which one's the skull ring. And no, they've done a fantastic job with it.
I thought I broke mine when I moved the ankle because I was not expecting the ankle to be articulated.
Oh, right.
Like, oh, no, my ankle's broken. And then I'm like, oh, hang on, no, it's supposed to be like that.
I thought I broke mine when I did this. And if you're watching the YouTube, you can see the Phantom's in 2 bits. The torso actually is just a ball and socket joint on top of the waist. So if you're doing that while you're playing with it actively, don't freak out. You can put it back together. It's not like that old G.I. Joe you might have had where the rubber band perished and you could never put him back together again. No, he's a hardy little unit.
I have asked them if they're doing anything more, and they didn't answer, so I reckon that might be a yes. So we'll have to watch that space.
And there's some talented people doing either still photography or motion capture or stop motion photography stop motion photography using figurines like that. And so if you're listening and you can do that, share what you do on Phantom Collector on Facebook, please, so I can see it. Because I'd like to see what they do with some of the way they do the lighting and the macro photography, and some little snippets.
There was a really good Zorro one. I'm not sure if any of you saw that, but it was maybe a minute. And I know it's not, easy. We've all seen, was it Robot Chicken back in the day and stuff like that, who did a Defenders of the Earth one, so maybe we can get another Defenders of the Earth version. But yeah, there's been a Zorro one using the Boss Fight Studios, but yeah, it'll be nice to see. Hopefully we can get something else, maybe an older Phantom with a cape, with the big hat, some more swords, maybe a pirate. So yeah,
I'd probably just go for a purple Julie at the moment. To be honest, that'd be a good start.
Yeah, but we've already got 2 Julies.
Not a purple one.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't need the collective rainbow for every person.
I agree. That's why we shouldn't have had the blue and the red already. But anyway, I digress. All right.
There are millions, well, maybe not millions, but there are thousands of other fans who who believe that their Phantom is more than just purple.
Of course. All right. For what it's worth, once he goes in the display cabinet, there's going to be a purple Phantom sitting on him, and the grey can go and stand in the corner. I love the grey, but he's not getting top billing on top of Hero. So, all right. Did we already talk about the original Necker as well?
Yeah, no, we've done that.
We've done that. I missed a podcast or two. All right. The Jan Hofstrom exhibition, then. I thought we did talk about this last time, maybe not on the last Comics and News. So the Jan Hofstrom exhibition is still on. It seems to have been on for a while now.
No, this is a new one. You really should read our website. What's our website again, Dan?
chroniclechamber.com. I clicked on it there before, and I thought I'd read that quickly while someone was talking about something else, and for some reason, it's zoomed far too far in. I can't read it. There's this bloody annoying pop-up box that keeps asking for my email. So anyway.
So it's this sweet little restaurant, cafe, museum, exhibition place on the seaside of Sweden. Really picturesque. Amazing views. Thanks to Peter Anderson, who went there, took some photos, and got us the information. I think it's closed by now, but yeah, it's nice to see. His artwork's a little bit different. I'm assuming, Duncan, you've gone ahead and brought yourself a trench coat.
No, I haven't.
They're only $2,000. What are you doing?
It's pocket change, isn't it? I'm sure. I reckon Bradley has brought one. Bradley Peach. I reckon Bradley Peach and Terry Cray have brought one. But yeah, so yeah. So so it was just an exhibition for a couple of weeks. Very nice. It's good to see him promoting the Phantom with some unique styles. And I think, we should see more of it. And if anyone does see some Phantom in some form of exposition or museum or art gallery or something, please let us know so we can report on it as well.
Absolutely. So tying into that, I want to come back to how we as every good story is told, we know this, don't we, Duncan? That we should finish how we started, and we started by mentioning the Jan Hofstrom bag here, which was going to come around for our Patreon prize draw for the Australian Spring prize draw. We're a couple of weeks late on that, sorry, but A, being really busy, and B, wanted to do it on the Comics and News so we can do it live for everybody. That's the main one. So, Jerm, if you'll just let me share my screen.
Yeah, I've already done that.
Very good. We'll go to the wheel here, and so you can see, and I'll just move the Chronicle Chamber team over the other side. So you can see down the side here, we've got the names of all of our patrons who have got various entries depending on their level of support, and we really appreciate everybody who helps out with the Patreon, because it just keeps the lights on and keeps us doing what we want to do and what we hope that people enjoy us doing. I don't like the way it stacks up on the wheel there, though, so we'll shuffle those. And so mixed everybody around, and let's go for the Patreon draw for the spring of 2022. Great tension as we see who's going to win this bag. Oh, Peter, you've missed out by one. He won the last bag. Nathan McKee, congratulations. So we'll send this out to you, Nathan. Yeah, it was interesting just seeing that click past Peter, because he won the winter prize draw, which was the blue bag. So, Peter, you nearly got the set, but as it stands, that one's going to Nathan McKee instead. So thanks very much, Nathan, for all your support, and to all of our Patreons who help us do what we do here, including the Phantom Preservation Project, and everyone who is a Patreon has access to that. It's interesting, Duncan, when you're talking about this museum, this digital library, I feel like the Phantom Preservation Project is a little bit along those lines. So I don't know, maybe we should be making that an NFT and selling it somehow. I don't know.
Like on Patreon.
Yeah.
Rising tide lifts all boats. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly right. All right. So I think that brings us just about to an end tonight, gents. Is there anything else that I've missed here?
No, I think Mike mentioned that we're sorting out the upcoming prize for summer. So that should be coming along quite nicely. And we are looking at a Christmas present for all the Patreons as well. So
you should go to patreon.com/Chronicle Chamber, and or the link is on our website, of course, and even if you can only contribute $1 a month, then obviously you're absolutely helping do what we do, and you're putting yourself in the draw for the spring draw, the seasonal draw. We tend to have something, as James just said, Christmas presents. So we try and do a Christmas in July around Supernova present as well. So plenty of benefit.
Duncan, as someone who does support us, and we thank you for that, why do you support us? Stroke our ego a little bit.
You told me that I couldn't be your friend. I've said it a few times when you've been kind enough to have me on, and I share it with the other people that have I meet that show an interest in the Phantom. The P3, the Phantom Preservation Project that you put, not just aside from the podcast that you're putting out essentially for free, and the website which you're always putting content out on, and your socials and everything, the Phantom Preservation Project and the work that goes in there is literally worth the price of admission. It is worth doing it just to go in there and lose a couple of days just trolling through the material that the boys have managed to put together. So if you're watching or you're listening and you're curious at all, subscribe for 1 month and you won't regret it. You'll stay. You'll come for the clicks and stay for the 1980s game that's in there, or the newsletters from forever ago from Hendo's Phantom Club. If you're a new reader and you want to know about the history, have a look. And if you're a classic old reader that is getting back into the Phantom and you've turned this podcast on, there's a lot of trips. There's a trip down memory lane for you there on the Preservation Project.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you for those kind words, Duncan, and the checks in the mail. So Look, thank you very much, everyone who's tuned in and listened to us today, tonight, this morning, wherever you are in the world, and whether you've been using us to help you get through a long drive or a boring shift at work, or drift off to sleep in the evening to our dulcet tones and we're the white noise that helps you pass away. Well, that was probably a bit extreme.
You used to do that. You used to do that, didn't you, Duncan? You used to go to sleep listening to us.
Do you think you're talking to Stephen again?
All right. If you've got any ideas as a listener, if you've got any ideas for topics you'd like to have covered or people you'd like us to talk to, obviously over the 230 odd episodes, we've had a chat to a fair whack of creators, and if there's people you'd like to hear from again, if there's whatever it might be, get in touch. We've said it a few times. The email is chroniclechamber@gmail.com, which of course you can find that and all of our socials through the website chroniclechamber.com. If you'd like to be notified or essentially receive the newsletter or get notifications of when a new post goes up, then you can sign up on the website there as well with the email address that's Jerm mentioned before. And yes, and if you do feel like you're in a position to support us on Patreon, and as Duncan said, the P3 is the Phan Preservation Project is a treasure trove to go through there, then hit us up on patreon.com/chroniclechamber as well. You can subscribe through iTunes or Spotify, any of your favorite podcast apps. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, then I think you click the bell and honk the horn and press subscribe or whatever it might be. And then you kids today and their NFTs and their YouTubes and their whatever's. Anyway, you know what you're doing. So thank you very much for your support. Thanks for playing along tonight. Thank you, Jerb. Thank you, Duncan.
You can tell it's late where you are. Thank you, Duncan, for joining us and staying awake. You've done better than Stephen already. And g'day to Stephen. Hope you're enjoying the theme parks and as well.
All right. Well, until next time, guys, thank you very much again for joining us, and happy fandoming.
Happy Phan.
Happy fandoming, everyone.